The 1920s in one form of another. Of course, the Nordschleife is the original track, a massive 12.9 mile track, nicknamed the Green Hell by Jackie Stewart. But we're not using that one today. We are on the sprint course, which is 3.6 kilometers around, a little bit more manageable, isn't it? And features 11 turns, 4 of them are to the left and 7 are to the right. Unlike the previous rounds, not much elevation change, just about 7 meters, and the track varies between 10 and 25 meters wide. This current format of track was built in 1984 and has seen a lot of excitement here since, with a number of classic races from junior classes stretching right through to Formula One. So the green light is on at the end of the pit lane and we are ready to go qualifying. Only 6 days ago we were in Zandvoort, and what a weekend that proved to be, with the wind and the rain and all sorts of incidents. It was a very, very exciting weekend, and just 6 days later we've mooched on across to Germany here to the Nürburgring. And of course, in Zandvoort, it was Michael Ammermuller who won both of the races. So he has rapidly become the man to beat as this season has progressed. And the man who dominated the first half of the season, Larry Ten Voorde, who only a couple of weeks ago was sitting atop of the points championship, has now dropped down into P3. So he's got it all to do again. And his troubles were not helped by a radiator issue, a water leak in radiator in free practice yesterday, which meant he didn't get as much setup time as many of the other drivers had got. So he's already a little bit on the back foot, and he's got a lot to do because, as we say, it's Michael Ammermuller who won both races last week and has elevated himself to P2 in the points. His BWT Lechner Racing teammate, Julian Andlauer, sits at the top of the points. But there is very, very little separating them. So Julian Andlauer at the top with 147.5 points. Michael Ammermuller in P2 with 138. And Larry Ten Voorde just behind with 134. So the heat is definitely on as we reach the closing stages of this season. So it's great to be back in Germany, very much a home track for many of the drivers. We have half an hour of qualifying ahead of us. If you remember, the fastest lap that the drivers put in during this session will determine their starting position for race 2 tomorrow, and their second fastest lap will determine their starting position for race 1 today. So it's more than just about putting one hot lap in. Lots of work to do for all of these drivers as you see them weaving furiously, just trying to get heat into the tyres. Yesterday during free practice, it was sunny and warm and feeling really quite tropical, actually. This morning, we wake to grey and leaden skies. We had a lot of rain overnight, so the track is looking pretty green. We've had a fair bit of running from other classes here this morning already, so that's helped a bit to get a bit of rubber on the track. But it's definitely temperatures that are a bit lower, and just looking at the temperatures today, just 15.5 degrees, which is quite a lot less yesterday. So a lot of the setup work done yesterday won't count for much with conditions so much cooler today. We're looking at Michael Ammermuller, first man to put in a green, 51.356 for his first sector, but goes purple in the second sector. Purple meaning he is quicker than anybody else on the track. So we look at Michael Ammermuller. Times just at the moment are going to be reasonably irrelevant because drivers are getting heat into tyres and into brakes and getting the cars up to temperature. So last year's pole sitter, Thomas Preining, claimed pole position with the fastest lap was a 128.1. We'd expect drivers to be eclipsing that today, but as we say, conditions are not ideal. So we should keep an eye and see what happens. So, riding on board with Julian Andlauer for BWT Lechner Racing. Got a P2 last week in Zandvoort and P6 in the second race. But already he's won 2 races this year, looking to add to that tally. And you can see the view in his car as he circles this Nürburgring track. Still trying to get heat into the tyres and a car into the gravel trap already. Tim Zimmerman for Black Falcon. So already a car into the gravel trap. Now that is potentially going to bring out a red flag on this session, I should think, because retrieving a car from the gravel trap is not something that can be done without the aid of some heavy lifting machinery. And as we suggested, the red flags are out already to retrieve the Tim Zimmerman car. So let's just have a look, see what happened. And cold tyres, cold brakes, locks it up, goes wide into the runoff area and goes through that as well and into the gravel. And we can see it's in the Mercedes complex and bang into the gravel. And I just wonder if there was any other issues apart from just going in too hard on cold tyres and cold brakes. So that's up in towards turn 1. And you can see the frustration there. So, Tim Zimmerman, his morning has already got off to a very, very bad start. The number 50 car buried in the kitty litter and going to need a bit of help to get out of there. This track, unlike Zandvoort, where we were at last weekend, not all gravel traps on the corners, has a fair bit of runoff area, which allows drivers quite often to get away with it if they make some kind of mistake. But as you can see, he not only went through the runoff area, but also into the gravel as well, which is why you wonder whether he did have another issue apart from just going too hard too soon. So he hasn't got a competitive time on the board yet. So plenty still to do for Tim Zimmerman, and that's not the kind of way you want to start your weekend, because this session will determine starting positions for both of the Porsche races this weekend. And as we've seen all season long, coming through the grid from further down is not easy. These cars so evenly matched. As we see him being dragged out by the heavy lifting equipment. There's a great view there looking back at the stands, which are starting to fill up this morning at this historic track, Nurburgring. So good to be here. Just so much atmosphere and history tied up in this wonderful venue. And the medieval castle of Nurburg overlooking the circuit. Really picturesque and looked especially resplendent yesterday in the sunshine, but you probably don't want to know that because it's not sunny today. So everybody's back to the pits and all that hard work in warming tyres and brakes up, and the cars are going to be sat cooling down, and so it's all going to happen again. There we go. A lovely statue's not the word for, is it? A sign for Nürburgring on the centre of the roundabout as we see the many spectators still pouring into this wonderful venue. You can see the current classifications, but that really doesn't stand for much. Number 37 car of Igor Veliko at the top, but as I said earlier, we expect those to come tumbling down. Good to see Jackson Evans in P2. He's our leading rookie driver, And Carlos Rivas is our leading amateur driver. So we have to remember there's more than just the main Drivers' Championship that they're fighting for here. Carlos Rivas in the amateur standings is leading. And in the rookies, Jackson Evans fighting off the attentions of Berke Besler. And in P3, Leon Kohler. Now there's a story. You remember last week at Zandvoort, Leon Kohler and Sandro Kaibach getting together. And the net result was Sandro Kaibach suffering an enormous accident, which saw his car riding up the tyre barrier and onto its roof, causing a red flag in the second race. And very happy to say that Sandro is completely uninjured and walked away from that, although perhaps a little bit grumpy, feeling that Leon Kohler didn't give him enough space. And the stewards have agreed with him and disqualified Leon Kohler from that race. And of course, Sandro Kaibach is Leon Kohler's MSG HRT Motorsport teammate. So the team have given Sandro Kaibach Leon Kohler's car for this weekend. And Leon Kohler's having the weekend off. So all is not great there as we see Larry Ten Voorde with the windscreen wiper running. Now, looking out of the commentary box window, I can't actually see any rain coming down, but clearly he hasn't got that windscreen wiper running for decorative reasons, so there must be some moisture out on the circuit, and that makes these early laps especially critical, because if there is rain coming down, the track is going to get slower. So getting a quick time in and getting it in quickly is going to be crucial. So all drivers heading out onto the track, and suddenly the pressure is on. They need to get in 2 laps that are competitive to get those grid positions for race 1 and race 2 before the track gets wet and starts to slow down. So suddenly the urgency is definitely there, and yeah, you can see on the camera lens there is some moisture, so definitely rain is going to be an issue in this session. The other issue is going to be traffic, and you can just see how many cars there are weaving and looking for heat into the tyres and into the brakes. But of course they need space as well, and aerodynamics counts for a lot. You don't want to be tucked up to a car in front. You don't want to be unsettled by cars behind, in front, or at the side. The cars need a bit of space to put in those hot laps. So not only do they need to get temperature into tyres and brakes, but they also need to find some space out on the track. And as we see Mikael Ammermuller down the very slight gradient and in the Mercedes complex. And suddenly, it's time to really get our act together. So, 27 minutes remaining, but if this rain is going to come in, really a lot less than that in terms of an opportunity to put in a competitive lap. The forecast does say that we are due for showers on and off today. As we can see, Mikael Ammermuller just coming out of turn 11, and there is just a lot of moisture on that camera lens there, isn't there? So, Mikael Ammermuller, 1:30.50. Meanwhile, Joey Mawson, now that's a name that has joined us for this race, replacing Sebastian Daum in the Team Cartec car. And Joey Mawson, ex-ADAC Formula 4, Formula 3, and currently Porsche Mobile Super Cup driver, and he was showing as quick as just now, but already the times are tumbling. And as quick as I can say their names, there's new drivers appearing at the top of the timesheet. So our current fastest driver is actually Dylan Pereira. In the 1:30.221 is his lap time. And the number 14 of Tony Wolff in P2 with a 1:30.339. The BWT Lechner racing cars have been the ones to beat this weekend. Dylan Pereira, racing for BWT Lechner, sits at the top of the point standings. I say this weekend, I mean this season. The BWT Lechner cars, apart from Larry ten Voorde, it has been very much a BWT Lechner racing dominance in a number of the races. And there's Dylan Pereira, not in the familiar pink car of his pink livery of his teammates, but in the blue car there. And Dylan Pereira, quickest of anybody in Sector 1 with a 45.77. And a quickest of anybody in Sector 3, a 21.394. So he's the first below the 1 minute 30 mark and a lap time of 1:29.560. Julian Landauer looking to respond. Already purple sector in turn 1. Purple time in Sector 1. You can tell it's first thing in the morning, can't you? As we see car 6. Looks like he's had a bit of a spin there. That's Carlos Rivas. And he's our leading amateur driver. So Carlos Rivas back into the pit lane. And it looks like he might have had a little bit of a spin there. So Dylan Pereira still the quickest. Julian Andlauer, fellow BWT Lechner Racing driver, P2. Let's have a look here at the Carlos Rivas car coming into the corner, under braking. Just see him just getting locked up all on his own. Turns it around and back. That's into turn 10, turn 9 and 10. And on board with him. Just proving that traction is at a premium out there this morning with cold temperatures, moisture in the air. And very, very easy to get the car turned around. So we look at Tony Wolff in the 14 car, currently lying in P5. And on board with Julian Andlauer. So Julian Andlauer down in P3 at the moment. And it's a BWT Lechner 1-2-3 in the timesheets at the moment. Dylan Pereira at the top, Mikael Ammermuller P2, Julian Andlauer P3. And our highest non-BWT Lechner car is our leading rookie, Jackson Evans, in P4 with a 129.8. And then we can see Julian Andlauer along the pit straight and into turn 1. Just using the curbs. And if this moisture does continue, those curbs are going to become very, very slippery, which is why our lap times are probably going to go up if the track gets wet. So 22 minutes left. Mikael Ammermuller, personal bests in every sector, but not enough to unsettle Julian Andlauer, who's now at the top with 129.398. And on board with Larry ten Voorde. Remember, he had a difficult day yesterday, but he's put up a purple sector, Sector 2. Lost a lot of time yesterday with those mechanical issues. Not a great Sector 3, puts him into P4, which is still pretty reasonable. But he'll be looking for more than that as we look back. Look at the concentration in his eyes. I love those shots. You really get a perspective of the level of concentration required. So, ten Voorde, windscreen wiper still going. Still, I don't think enough moisture on the track to make any significant difference. As we look at the 67 car of Joey Mawson, getting it all row under braking into the gravel track, just about picks it up. Whoa, keep it going, don't let it stop. And rejoins right in front of Jackson Evans. Should have distracted him somewhat, I have no doubt. And see Mikael Ammermüller using all of the curbs and bouncing the car up. See how strong the suspension is on these Porsche 911s. Bouncing across the curbs. Great shot. As Mawson comes into the pit lane. Car's jacked up. Great to see him here in the Porsche Carrera Cup for this event. As I said earlier, replacing Sebastian Daum for this one as we see Stefan Repkov. And he's down in P26 at the moment, so still got a lot to do. Put in a personal best in Sector 2, but not a personal best in Sector 3. And he's still loitering right down in P26. Tim Zimmermann, who we saw into the gravel earlier, back out on the track, looking to make amends. Under braking into turn 1, to 2 and 3. And probably just very, very keen to keep it on the track and get a decent time on the board just to start off with. Currently showing P15, so not too bad when you consider how his morning started. A number of cars now coming back into the pit lane. Larry ten Voorde appears to be the only one who considers it wet enough to run his windscreen wiper. Maybe that's just in case. Personal bests takes him up to P3, unseating Dylan Pereira, who goes down to P4. And you think Dylan Pereira was at the top of our timesheets for the first half of this session, now down into P4. So we can see that the track is getting quicker at the moment. And as far as I'm aware, the rain is not an issue. So here comes Larry ten Voorde. And that's the Sandra Kaibach car, or should I say the Leon Kohler car, with Sandra Kaibach at the rear, at the wheel of it. And that really was a spectacular crash last week in Zandvoort. Not often you see a Porsche 911 on its roof, although some wisecrack did mention on YouTube that I clearly didn't live in the part of London that they did, where you'd regularly see a Porsche 911 on its roof, but I'm not making any comments about that. Tyre changes on the 44 car. So, just over 17 minutes left of this qualifying session. Competitive times on the board for everybody. And about 2.5 seconds, 2.4 seconds separating the front and the back of the pack. And almost everybody's in the pit lane at the moment. So this is that calm that we get mid-session quite often before the drivers come out and go for that second bite of the cherry and try to improve on the lap time. So our halfway point, our fastest man is Julian Andlauer with a 1:29.398. He's followed by Mikael Ammermüller, not far behind at all, 1:29.447. Larry ten Voorde in P3 with a 1:29.449. So that is 0.02 of a second slower than Mikael Ammermüller. And then Dylan Pereira in P4. Tony Wolff is in P5. Jackson Evans, our highest placed rookie, doing so well this year in the Porsche Carrera Cup. He's currently in P8 with a 1:29.8. So only half a second off Julian Andlauer's pole time. Really turning a few heads this year is Jackson Evans. And it's really good to see him part of this series. Very excited to see where he goes from here. As we see Carlos Rivas, who had that little spin earlier on. And he's right down in P27 at the moment. He's got to find 1.6 seconds from somewhere if he wants to get anywhere near the front of the grid. So our leading amateur driver in the points is Carlos Rivas. Although our fastest amateur driver today is the number 33 car, Stefan Raykopf. And he's down in P26. So as we watch Carlos Rivas, you see big pile of gravel on the track there. I don't know if that's the very pile that he dragged on or whether that's somebody else who did that. But he is the only car on the track at the moment. So although the track will get faster at the end of the session, he really does benefit from having an absolutely clear track in front of him as he comes into turn 11 and on to the pit straight, comes screaming past, but does very little to improve his time with P27, 1:31.039. So he continues on his way. The other car on the track at the moment, Andrzej Szczepanski. So those are the only two cars as the rest of the field wait for that big shootout at the end of this session. And provided the rain stays off, it's going to get very, very busy very, very soon. If the conditions stay dry, the track will get faster and faster as the session goes on. So going out as late as possible is going to be the best opportunity to get up the grid. And there's Carlos Rivas enjoying all the space and no traffic. And a great opportunity for the amateur driver to learn the track and to find a way of just nibbling down that lap time a bit. Out of turn 11, back onto the pit straight, and jumps up 4 places to P22. So definite progress there. That's a 1:30.485. Our pole time being 1:29.398. So about a second off the pole time as we look again at Julian Andlauer doing 2 wheels off the curbing. See the back end stepping out slightly. It shows how forgiving the Porsche 911s are over the bumps. There are many cars that wouldn't cope with that level of hammer, and they do seem to handle the bumps very well indeed, and you can afford to ride the curbs. Right, engines are running. You can see the BWT Lechner cars all lined up in a row there. Here we go. 11 3/4 minutes left of this qualifying session, and suddenly it's going to get very, very busy. Every car looks like it's about to move. As we see the 22 car of Nicolas Skoll. Oh, 4 wheels off the track. Very impressive. They build them strong at Porsche, don't they? Great shots of the cars bumping over these curbs. And there's Carlos Rivas earlier on. You can just see the car sliding into the corner in the Mercedes complex. Cameraman doing the best he can to keep up with him. So, Julian Andlauer on the way out. There's the 92 car Luke Rettenbacher. just behind him. Looks like Michael Müller is going to make a move as the Andrea Szczepanski car goes wide but survives to fight another day. And it takes a good lap to get these tyres up to temperature at the very least, with no tyre warmers allowed on these cars, of course. So, 92 there of Luca Rettenbacher. He's also spun, kept it going, no damage by the looks of things. Comes straight out in front of one of the BWT cars. Just see him losing the back end. That's turn 1, I think. Pointing the other way. Fortunately, well off the racing line. And rejoins. So, it's far from easy out there with the temperatures as they are. As we look at Luca Rettenbacher carrying on his way. So, Julian Andlauer is still our pole man, 129.398. That's the one they're all trying to catch. You see there one of the BWT electric cars just overtaking on the inside, looking for space as we look at Michael Müller. See the amount of rubber across the curbs. This track giving the drivers the luxury of being able to use those curbs and to take a few liberties, unlike Zandvoort last week, where one mistake would see you in the gravel trap. And you can see weaving like mad to try and get heat into those tyres. And there's Müller looking on the inside of Zimmermann. And Louis Henkefeld, another one taking a shortcut across the grass. Haven't seen much of him today. Where's he lying? Down in P26. So not having the best of days is young Louis. As we look at Larry ten Voorde. It's good seeing his eyes. You can just see him looking to the mirror. You see him looking across the corner as he's coming in. You see how much the driver is taking in. I love these shots. And time to exit the car. That is Carlos Rivas. Had enough. Done very well. P22. By far the leading amateur driver. But it's interesting, a lot of these cars have been out for a good few laps and they're still weaving, trying to get heat into those tyres. As we see on board with Julian Andlauer, really struggling with temperatures at about 15 degrees, really working hard to keep heat into the tyres, get some more grip. That's our pole man at the moment, provisionally, Julian Andlauer for BWT Lechner Racing. Down into turn 1. A really unusual camber coming off that corner straight into turn 2. And then in 3, and up a slight gradient towards turn 4. On board with David Kolkman in Team Black Falcon. See the very impressive Mercedes stand in the corner there. You can see so much of the track from up there. And this is a great shot. Look at this. Left foot braking, rather him than me. Last time I tried to do that in a road car, I put my head through the windscreen. So you see him braking with his left foot there. That's what makes a driver a real driver. Giving it all. That's a great camera shot with David Kolkman. Just getting heat into the brakes. Getting ready, just backing up, heating everything, nailing it. Ready, down across the start-finish line to start his next attempt at a hot lap on the brakes. So you can see him tilting his foot. Multi-pedal functioning going on here. That's great shots. On the brakes hard. It's just really interesting the way he tilts his foot onto the clutch as well. It's a black art, I tell you, and that's why I talk about it and don't drive them. P13 at the moment is David Coltman. We're carrying on this lap, on board with him, looking at his view out the window, looking at the view at his feet, on the brakes hard. And a full lap looking at the feet of David Coltman. Brilliant stuff. Well, that keeps him in P13. Well, that's what the car looks like from the outside. So there's the Mikael Ammermuller just ahead of David Coltman. Mikael Ammermuller currently in P2. David Coltman currently looking to improve on his P14 time. He's just been unseated by Joey Mawson, who has jumped up the timing screens. Mawson up in P9 in his debut here in the Porsche Carrera Cup in Germany. There's Georgia Donchev. Also getting it up on two wheels. I said last week when Sandra Kaibach went over, it's the first time I've seen the underside of a 911. I think I've seen the underside of a 911 several times already during this session. That's a great shot down the home straight alongside the pits. Dylan Pereira flashing the lights. Get out of my way, I'm coming through. Julian Andlauer saying, no, you get out of my way, I'm coming through. Riding on board with Julian Andlauer. Looking at the back of the Dylan Pereira car. Julian Andlauer, whilst that's all been happening, has been the first driver to make it into the 128. So 128.991 for Julian Andlauer. That's a great time with these conditions. Still about 8 tenths off last year's pole time. But the only driver into the 128s at the moment. Larry Ten Voorde has now jumped up into P2. He's at 129.245. So about 2.5 tenths behind Julian Andlauer. Here comes Mikael Ammermuller, quickest in Sector 1. What can he do? Not so quick in Sector 2, though. Can he make up that difference in Sector 3 and unseat his teammate from provisional pole position? It's Mikael Ammermuller that we're looking. The two BWT Lechner cars are together as they come out of turn 11 onto the pit straight to cross the line. And it's P2 for Mikael Ammermuller. So that's bumped Larry Ten Voorde down to P3. Has Larry Ten Voorde got anything that he can offer in response? At the moment, it doesn't look like it. As we look at Mikael Ammermuller. And suddenly, we've got 30 seconds left of this session. Michael Ammermuller was the quickest in Sector 1, looking to unseat Julian Andlauer. At the moment, it's a BWT Lechner 1-2, with Dylan Pereira in P4, and Larry Ten Voorde, the only driver who's able to split the BWT Lechner cars up. Michael Ammermuller, not a great first sector, so not looking good to unseat Andlauer. 45.732. Well, it's better than I could do, that's for sure, but it's probably not quick enough to get the car into P1. And P2, Sector 2 as well. Does not look as though Michael Ammermuller has got anything for Julian Andlauer. Here comes Ammermuller into the final corner and onto the pit straight, across the finish line. And it's P2 for Michael Ammermuller. So the checkered flag is out. The cars come across the start-finish line. Still waiting for Larry Ten Voorde to cross the line, but he's not putting in times that are going to compete with Julian Andlauer. So it's looking like Julian Andlauer is our fastest driver in the qualifying session for the Porsche Carrera Cup. And now Ten Voorde is across the track. Across the start-finish line. So there you have it. At the end of 35 minutes is Julian Andlauer, who's our quickest car, the only driver to make it into the 128s with a 128.991. Michael Ammermuller in P2 with Larry Ten Voorde, P3. Dylan Pereira in P4 with a 129.435. So 3 BWT Lechner cars in the first 4, with only Larry Ten Voorde spoiling the BWT Lechner party. P5, Igor Veliko. Henrik Skoog in P6. Haven't seen much of him today after a wretched Zandvoort, doing a lot better here. And then Jaap van Lagen in P9. Tony Wolff in P8 and Giorgio Maglia in P9. So there you go, there are your times. The only driver in the 128, Julian Andlauer. He's the man to watch, isn't he? There you can see Gustav Maglia, beg your pardon, Luca Rettenbacher, Joey Mawson doing very well. P11 on his debut in the Porsche Carrera Cup. And that's the rest of the positions through to P30. So that has been a very exciting qualifying session, very unpredictable. The weather playing a big part in it and setting us up for what looks like it's going to be a good couple of races. One today, one tomorrow. That is our third place finisher, Larry Ten Voorde. He's currently third in the points as well, looking to retake that lead. Michael Ammermuller, P2 in today's timing session. And of course, he is P2 in the points. And our current points leader is also our current fastest driver. The only one into the 128, it's Julian Andlauer, making it a BWT Lechner 1-2. So we're all set for some great racing as this weekend progresses. I do hope you're going to join us for it. We'll look forward to seeing you later. Bye-bye.